Thanks for joining us. This is ClearBlade's ClearLab series, session 6. The theme is capturing and displaying data from multiple devices. My name is Akash Sharma. I'm an IoT solutions engineer with ClearBlade, and we're a company that helps developers build IoT solutions. So let's recap what we've done over the last several sessions. We've built a system that stores and displays temperature data. We started off with that temperature data originating at an endpoint maintained by the National Weather Service. And then we slowly moved towards having that data come from an adapter running on some gateway device like a Raspberry Pi. That adapter would feed that data to the ClearBlade Edge running on the same device. The ClearBlade Edge had a stream service running locally that would store that data to a collection on the edge. That edge was synced up to a collection in the platform, which is in the cloud. And so that data would get synced up to the collection in the platform. And that collection in the platform was the data source for a widget in a portal where we would display that data. What we want to do today is to capture and display data from two devices, and by extension, N devices. Why? Well, we're building an Internet of Things, plural system. So we want to be able to capture and display data from more than just one thing. So we have several changes we need to make. They are small changes, but there are many of them. The first change is, rather than capturing the data in device one temperatures, where we've been capturing it so far, we're going to have a new collection called device_temperatures. And the data from all the devices will be captured in this one collection. So there will have to be a new name column in that new collection. Now, there was some discussion that went on with myself and some colleagues about what the best way is to capture this data. Should we have a dedicated collection per thing or per device? That is an approach that would have made sense with a small number of devices. In fact, with a smaller number of devices, taking that approach, we might have actually ended up saving less data because we don't have to repeatedly store the device name, which in this case will be repeated in multiple rows. However, that approach would have been handleable if we were talking about a number of devices in the order of a few or 10. But the moment you're talking about hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of devices publishing data that we need to maintain, then having a collection per device would probably become unmanageable fairly quickly. So we've decided to keep the data for all the devices in one collection. So because of that change, we're going to have to modify other components accordingly. We're going to have to modify our stream service that subscribes to topics where the data originates and which saves the data to the collection. That needs to be modified. The adapter, which is the Python code that publishes the data, right now it still simulates that data, that needs to be modified so that we can have multiple devices connected at the same time. So we can have that Python adapter present itself as more than one device. And the internal resource in our portal that queries the collection in the platform and updates our widget, that needs to be changed as well. Now, about the adapter, let me mention that during this video, I will show multiple adapters running on the same edge. So essentially that would mean that device one and device two are connected to one edge. There's no reason I could not have spun up a second edge, for example, one on my computer and the other on a Raspberry Pi, and have an adapter connect to each one. The results would have been the same. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to have both devices connect to one edge. And then finally, what we are going to need to change is the widget that displays the data. The scatter plot widget that we've been using so far, it really is built for displaying a single plot, and we need multiple plots, one per device. So we're going to use a line chart, and you will see how that works as we get to it. So that's the end goal, to have a line chart display the time and temperature data that comes from more than one device. So with that said, let's get started And I'd like everyone to log into platform.clearblade.com. And if you haven't registered, remember, no registration key, but you need the rest of the information. Go ahead and log in. And as I've said, if you already have your temperature monitor system built up and you followed all the instructions through the end of session 5, that means your temperature monitor is up to date, then feel free to continue using that. However, if you haven't followed all the instructions through the end of session 5, then I would encourage you to rename your existing temperature monitor to temperature monitor in progress. And you can start with the finished copy of the system from the end of session 5 as a starting point. Now, I will mention that this video is being recorded without a accompanying live seminar. So I don't currently know in what format the support files and the completed system from session 5 are going to be made available, but be aware that they should be attached to this video in some form or fashion. So find that completed system if you want to start with that. I'm going to go ahead and add system from file. I'm going to browse to wherever the completed system from session 5 is. I happen to have it here. You might have it under a different name, but I'm going to go ahead and pick that. I don't need to extract anything. Open. And I will have this system as it was at the end of session 5. Now let's go ahead and do some preliminary changes that we know we need to do. I'm going to go to users. The one user I've been using as the one that requests services. Essentially, we start off using this user when we log into our portal. I'm going to click on the gear icon, go to settings, change password, and assign him a password that I will remember. And there are several more changes we're going to need to do. So let's go ahead and do all of them, and you'll see how they all affect the end result when we get further. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to devices. And I'm going to go to the existing device, click on the gear icon, settings, and I'm going to change the active key to something I'm going to be able to remember. And let me explain why. I'm going to have 2 copies of the adapter, the Python adapter running, and I want each one to present itself as a different device. So I'm going to have device 1, and then we're going to add a device 2. I didn't want to have 2 different Python files with the difference being just the device key is different. So I hard coded the device key into the Python file, then I would need 2 copies. And I also didn't want to pass the device key in as a command line argument. So for that reason, I'm going to just have both device 1 and device 2 have the same device key, and I'm going to leave that hard coded inside the Python file. So let me go ahead and add device 2, device-2, and I'll give it the same device key. And obviously, this is not what you would use in the real application you might build. What you might do is have some configuration file sitting next to the adapter, which contains things like the device key, and is probably going to be protected in such a way that not everybody would be able to read it. But this is going to work for our demo. So let's continue. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to roles, and specifically the authenticated role. And if I go to message topics, you'll see that currently authenticated is allowed to publish to or subscribe to topics that have this pattern, device 1, something or the other. Now, that would work for the adapter that connects as device 1, but you would imagine the adapter that connects as device 2 would want to be able to publish to a topic that has the pattern device/2/something. So for that reason, we're going to make it so that authenticated, I'm going to get rid of this, and I'm going to let authenticated be able to publish and subscribe to device/hash. Then we cover all of those. Let's keep going. Let's go to collections. Now here you see device 1 temperatures, and we already said we want to capture all the device data in one collection. That's going to be called device underscore temperatures. Now, how do I create that? Well, let's imagine if you've already captured data in this collection and you want to migrate that data into your new collection. And so long as it's not a huge amount of data, you can absolutely do the following. You can export the data as a JSON. You do want to choose JSON if your intention is to eventually re-import it into a new collection. If you just want to be able to analyze it or view it somewhere else, you can export a CSV. If you export as JSON, you'll get a zip folder or zip file with a JSON file inside it. And then you would be able to import that JSON file to create your new collection. And then you can modify that new collection. Now, all of this is because I really cannot change the name of the existing collection. I can't go to details and change this name. That's not available to me. And we are not going to try to get into manipulating the actual database that this is within. Now, I don't have any data to export. And even if I did, all I really care about is the schema. What columns are there? I want to recreate that in the new collection and then add columns as I need. And you might say, wait a second, this schema is very simple. There's just 2 columns. Why don't you just recreate it? Absolutely, you can. But imagine if you had 50 columns, it would be very painful to recreate all of that. So so let's just learn how to export and import the schema by itself. Here's one way. Click on the gear icon, go to details, and here is the schema. I'm going to copy it. The other way is you'd have to go into the database itself, which is pretty involved. So I've copied the schema. Now I'm going to bring up my code editor, create a new file, and I'll make this a JSON file. Paste. I'm going to modify this a little bit. Put curly braces around there. Schema. And these other items are important. Although I don't really know if the name is used, not having the name will probably cause the import to not work. So the name of the new collection would be device underscore temperatures. And I do need to pass an items item, which is all the rows that I'm passing in. I don't want to pass in any rows into the new collection. I just want it to be an empty collection with these columns. Now I could add the new column, the name column I'm going to add right here, but I'm going to do that manually. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as, and I'll just save it into the same folder as I have this downloads folder. It's fine for now. I'm going to call this new call.json. Okay, save that. And now let's go to collections, add collection, device underscore temperatures. I've certainly done this once before. Import, choose file, new call, create, and I'll give authenticated all the permissions to do anything with this collection, add permissions, and there we have it, the same schema. Now I'm going to go ahead and edit columns, and I'll add a name column. It's going to be string, add column, done, and now I have my collection, the one I need to capture the new data in. Now who's going to write this data? It's going to be a stream service that we've already created. So let's go ahead and modify that stream service. Where is it? It's under code. By the way, this is a collapsing option that I use to give myself more space in this workspace. So there's code, log temperatures. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and do that. Maybe I'll leave it there. So log temperatures. And we need to change a few things here. Right now, log temperatures is logging the temperature data to device underscore 1 temperatures. Change that to device underscore temperatures. Secondly, log temperatures is subscribing to device /1/temperatures. We'll change that to use a wildcard so that this middle piece can be any device number. Let's refer to that middle piece as a device number, and the device number concatenated with a prefix of device dash will give you the device name. Great. Now there's one other piece, and that is in the process message, you'll see we are creating new rows, but we're creating new rows with these two columns, valid time and value. Now we need one more column, which is the name. And let's call this dev name for device name. Now, how do I build the device name? Well, the topic that comes in here is the topic on which the message came in that we just responded to within the stream service. And that topic contains the device number, and hence we can build the device name. So to do that, I'm just going to go to my code editor. I already have the completed code. By the way, these files should be attached to your video. Logtemperatures.js is the completed copy of the stream service. TemperatureAdapter.py is the completed copy of the adapter, the Python adapter. And then we're going to see a couple more. So here is the code that builds the device name. I'll just paste that in and briefly mention what that's doing. It's taking the topic, splitting it up by the forward slashes. So I'm going to get an array of strings, and element number 1 is, which is the second element. So this is element 0, element 1, element 2. Element number 1 would contain the device number. I concatenate that with device dash as a prefix, and I get the device name. Okay, great. I've got my stream service ready to go. Now let's modify our Python code. So the Python code is similar to what we've used over the last few sessions, but it is modified. So it's good to look at some of these modifications. Some things are the same. For example, I still need my system key and my system secret. So let's go ahead and do that part. Let's go ahead, collapse this. Go ahead and get the system key, copy, paste it in here. System secret, copy, paste it in here. And here is the device key that I mentioned that's going to be used, that we set for both device 1 and device 2. Now, one big difference between this adapter and what we used last session is in this one, I'm passing in 3 command line arguments when I invoke the code. The first argument is the device number. It's going to be 1 or 2. The second argument is a low temperature, and the third argument is a high temperature. So I'm going to say to this Python code, run as device 1 or device 2, and generate temperature data between, for example, 10 and 20, or between 30 and 40. You'll see down here, we're using device number, what we got here, to build the device name. And we're using device number to define the topics that we subscribe to and publish to, as we expected. And the low and high temperature are used here to basically, here to generate random data between low and high, lower and upper. Okay. All right. So that's the Python code. Now the Python code is going to be deployed as an adapter. So we have an adapter already set up. So let's go to our adapter and make sure that it's using the latest one. So I'm going to go into temperature adapter. That's the name of our adapter. Just remember that. Set up adapter configuration. Apparently there's an old copy of the adapter that's been part of the, of the Python file that's been part of the adapter. Let's get rid of that. Import. Sorry, give me a second. Let's see where this is. It's in session 6. So, okay. So import from ClearBlade seminar series, session 6. There's my adapter. Update adapter. Great. So we have our Python code ready to go. Now, all the deployment is done by a deployment that we've configured. So let's go ahead and check that. And I will go ahead and maximize this. Let's check our deployment. So this deployment was built to deploy all devices, all adapters to the edge. One service, that's our stream service. We decided not to deploy the microservices that actually read from the National Weather Service endpoint, not important. Collections, apparently one of 2 collections has been deployed or will be deployed as part of this deployment. Let's see what the other one is. Oh, I see. Device_1 temperatures has been deployed, and such that it is synced from the platform back, from the edge back to the platform. We don't want device 1 temperatures anymore, so let's get rid of that. And instead, we're going to deploy device_temperatures, and we want it such that it is synced from edge to platform. In other words, we're going to write to the collection on the edge, and we want those changes to get reflected up to the platform. And that's really it. Everything else can stay the same. So I'm going to go ahead and save and exit. Okay. So our deployment is ready to go. The next thing we need to do is get our portal ready. So let's go ahead to portals. And let's go to temperature monitor portal. Let's log in as our user. Log in. And we do have a lot of different things to do in the portal. The first thing we will do is modify our internal resource. Recall that we have an internal resource, and that is in this case, it's a JavaScript file. It's basically something that gets executed upon first loading the portal. And if I look at that, you'll see that it has, it's a setting something to be done every 3 seconds. The set interval function indicates that the function within it needs to be executed every this many milliseconds. So 3,000 milliseconds, 3 seconds. But that function is querying device_1_temperatures. That's not right. Let's change that to device_temperatures. Save the file, save the portal, and let's reload, because the function to query the old collection is still in effect until I reload the browser tab. Now, if you wanted to know the completed copy of that internal resource, that should be available as well. It should be attached to your video as well. But the change is very simple. Okay, next change. This line chart, we're not, the scatter plot widget, we're not going to use anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. And instead, we're going to use a line chart. So let me make sure I have my line chart parser. I do. That should be attached to your video as well. Let's go ahead and add the line chart. Quick add. Line chart. And I'm going to change the resolution so that I can go ahead and resize this. Okay. So the line chart is preferred over the scatter plot for what we're doing, because the scatter plot only shows one plot per widget. With the line chart, I can show multiple plots per widget. So this data that I'm seeing right now is simulated data that kind of is provided out of the box. Where does it come from? Let's take a look. The data parser is generating this. If I go to edit, we see that the data parser is returning an array or list of JSON objects. And if I look at what the JSON objects are, you'll see that each object has a timestamp and several other items. And somewhere we've defined that the timestamp is the X, and all of these other items are all of these plots. So we're going to modify this, obviously, because instead of humidity, wind, rainfall, and so on, we're going to have one item for device 1 temperatures and another item for device 2 temperatures, and then an item for timestamp. Okay? So with that said, let's modify our parser. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the source to plot data. I'll keep saving. And second thing I'm going to do is paste in a parser that's already completed. Now you're welcome to look at this parser and see what the logic does, but I'll just mention a little bit about what is being done here without going into too much detail. And don't worry about the errors that pop up, I'll explain that. So we're going to have the two adapters send time and temperature data. Eventually, the time and temperature data is going to end up in this widget from the internal resource, which retrieves those from the collection and puts it in a local variable that's called plot data. Now, if it is possible that the widgets or the adapters may send time and temperature data at slightly different times. There's no guarantee that for a given timestamp, both device 1 and device 2 are going to publish data. It could be that at a certain time, only device 1 published, and at a different time, device 2 published, and it could be that at a certain time, both of them published. What we're doing here is we're making sure that if for a particular timestamp, there was device 1 data and device 2 data, then we're passing that whole thing as one JSON object. So one JSON object with one timestamp and two values. And the reason we do that is if we passed a JSON object with a particular timestamp and device 1 data, and a second JSON object with that same timestamp but device 2 data, I believe you're going to get multiple copies of that same timestamp along the x-axis, and we don't want that. And that's what this parser ensures that we don't have. So I'm going to go ahead and apply control. I'm going to save. I'm going to go ahead and reload once, just to make sure that there's nothing running that shouldn't be. And now the portal is really ready. Oh no, there's one more thing I need to do, or a couple more things I need to do, and that is, let's actually change that. The axes and the line configurations need to change. So I'm going to go to the settings for the line chart, go to lines, and you'll see there are all these lines or plots, as I think of them, for wind and rainfall. We don't want any of these guys. I'm going to get rid of two of them. And the first one I'm going to call device 1. And the second one I'm going to call, obviously, device 2. Okay, keep saving. Next, the x-axis is defined by an item in the JSON objects apparently called timestamp. We don't have a timestamp item. We're going to have instead a valid time item. The label could be just time. That's okay. Keep saving. And on the y-axis, all I need is a label called temperature, let's say. I don't need this, and keep saving that. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Okay. All right. And let me mention about this note and the error that's popping up at the bottom. The data source has returned an unexpected type of undefined. Well, the widget parser for this uses as its source data contained in a local variable called plot data that's being populated by the internal resource, and the internal resource gets the raw data that goes into that local variable from the collection. And right now the collection is empty. We haven't started our adapters, so there's no data going into the collections. The collection is empty, and that's what this error is all about. So let's get ready to start our adapters. To start our adapters, we need to start our edge, or the edge, and we said we're going to have two adapters running on the one edge. All right, so how do I start the edge? Well, I have my Linux terminal ready to go. Let me go back to this console tab, duplicate it, and let's look at edges. And I have an edge setup, and let me click on the gear icon and go to setup instructions. I'm going to be running this edge on a Linux x86 64 machine. I'm going to go ahead and copy the install command, paste it here, and while that installation happens, let me copy the startup command, paste that there, enter, and I watch, and here I'm getting the ClearBlade ASCII art, and that lets me know that the edge is actually running. So now if I go back, refresh, I see that my edge is running. Here it says not logged in, so I'm going to have to click and log in. Sometimes you'll get a link here. It doesn't tell you not logged in. When you try to click on the link, it gives you an error saying your token is invalid. All that means is it tries to log you in using an old token. Just dismiss that error and click on the link again. Then you will be asked to log in. Log in with the same credentials you used when you logged into platform.clearblade.com. Log in. Oops. Yep, there we go. Okay, so now I'm inside the edge, and I see that there's one service, one collection, and some other things that have been deployed. Let's see if our deployment worked correctly. Let's go into services, log temperatures. Look at that. There's our wildcard, and it is device underscore temperatures, not device underscore one temperatures. So it looks like our deployment at least did that. While we're here, notice that if I go to advanced and I refresh, there's no instances of this stream service running. So let me go to code editor, save and test, go to advanced. Now I have one instance running. Perfect. So that one is ready to go with, so it has subscribed to the topics defined by this pattern, and it will save data that arrives on those topics to the collection. So let's go look at the collection that it will be saved to. Device underscore temperatures, not device underscore one temperatures. Perfect. Now let's quickly look at roles, authenticated, message topics, and there it is. So our stream service will be able to receive data that comes in on device/1/temperatures and device/2/temperatures and so on. Okay, so now we've got our edge running. We got our temperature monitor portal ready to go. The next thing I will do is launch the Python adapter. So I'm going to open a new terminal, and in the same folder where I deployed my edge, I see there's an adapters subfolder, cd adapters, sorry. And in there, I see a temperature adapter subfolder. Let me go into that. And remember why it's called temperature adapter? That was the name of the adapter that we set up here. Temperature adapter. And that's why. And in here is my Python file. So let me get ready to run that, but let me duplicate that so that I I can have two terminals, each one running one copy of the adapter, and each one is going to be a different device. One is going to be device 1, one is going to be device 2. So let me get ready. Python 3, temperature adapter, 1, 10, 20. So this copy is going to run as device 1 and generate temperatures between 10 and 20 Celsius. The next one, Python 3, temperature adapter, 2, 30, 40. It's going to run as device 2 and generate temperatures between 30 and 40. All that done, let's go ahead and start that running and that running. And as that happens, now you will see the temperature data coming in, and you will see your line chart display two plots. So device 1, let me see, which one did I have? Device 1 between 10 and 20, device 2 between 30 and 40, device 1 between 10 and 20, device 2 between 30 and 40, as we expected. Don't worry about the fact that the widget shows the data appearing and disappearing. This is just because of the updates that are happening. Remember that we've got our internal resource executing some functions, executing a query function every 3 seconds. So when we throw new data at this widget, there's just some, I guess, internal animation or something that kicks in and causes this to appear. But once the data stops coming in, this flashing will also stop. So I hope this helps. I hope you see a way that you can display data from multiple things or devices on one widget. You may or may not want to do that, but you may also want to capture the data in a collection and maybe even use some external tool to analyze the data, compare the data across things. There's lots that can be done. This is just a visualization that might be very convenient to do right within our portal. So with that said, I'm going to stop this video. Please contact us at clearblade.com if you have any questions. And if you haven't seen the other videos, I encourage you to go back and do that. If you haven't actually built this following the instructions, I encourage you to do that as well. And do join us for the next one. Thanks, everybody.